Well, hi everyone, and thank you for watching or listening today. Today, I have the absolute pleasure of being with Welsh boxing legend Chris Jenkins, who is the British and Commonwealth welterweight champion and has also previously won the WBC International Super Lightweight title as well, challenged for the British Super Lightweight title and the WBC Youth Super Lightweight World title as well. Has reached the light welterweight quarterfinals in the prize fighter tournament and has been in with some of the very best fighters in Britain and Ireland. I've got a who's who list of names here. We've got Paddy Gallagher, we've got Darren Foley, Johnny Garton, Akeem Ennis-Brown, known as Ridley Rival, Liam Taylor, Tyrone Nurse. I mean, Chris has been in there with some of the absolute best of the best of the best in the UK. And also challenged for the WBA Oceania Super Lightweight title as well. I missed that one. So today we're going to be talking with the rock and roller. We're going to have a great chat about his life, career, and everything. So, champ, thank you so much for making the time today. I really appreciate it, by the way, because I know you're flat out with life. So, thank you.
No problem, mate. And I won the prize fighter as well.
Oh yeah, he won the prize fighter. That's true. What did I say? The final? Did I? Yeah, prize
Quarter
fighter
fighter.
winner, guys.
Yeah, I was like,
Yeah, won the prize fighter as well, guys. So an absolute legend of Welsh boxing that we're talking with today. So let's start at the beginning, champ. I mean, there's a lot to talk about, but I want to start with life as it is in 2021, because obviously you've had a little bit of time off from boxing now. I know obviously you've still been going to the shows and you've still been training and things like this. Obviously, not so much going to the shows with the pandemic, but you've still been around the sport, but you've been having some time off. So can you sort of fill us in and the fans on what's been happening recently, please, and how life is for you in 2021 right now?
2021, I started, it was looking like fights were happening. I'd been inactive for a long time due to the pandemic and purse bids falling through.
Mm,
I was meant to fight literally 8 weeks ago against the key man, not key man, or Echo Westerman. But I got injured in sparring roughly 12 days before the fight. I perforated my eardrum and the fight got pulled.
mm.
So I was really gutted, but I'm in the gym now. I'm training hard, waiting to have the all clear.
Fantastic, fantastic. Now, in a minute, we can look back at some other, some other of your key fights and all that sort of thing. But before we get there, when I interviewed Gary, and I know this was a little while ago now, but there was talk about negotiations with you and Conor Ben, and there were some other things going on. What happened with that in the end? Because the last I heard, it was sort of in talks and everything like that. But just for anyone watching this who doesn't know the story, can you fill us in on that side of it a little bit, please, champ?
He got made mandatory for the belt, and it was meant to go to purse bids. And that's all I know, that an offer was made from their side that we no we didn't want that. Yes, it would have been good money, but at the end of the day, Frank Warren was going to bid for me to fight on the own show because I'm a Frank Warren fighter. And a couple of days before, Eddie Earn pulled out. So that left me then in a position where I haven't boxed for almost a year.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. It makes sense. It does make sense. And I just wanted to highlight that, champ, because for anyone that doesn't know where you've been, I know a lot of people will know, a lot of your fans, and obviously the boys at the gym, they all know. But just for anyone that doesn't know, it's good to give that a highlight because we can't wait to see you back in action, champ. I mean, it's as simple as that. We're all looking forward to seeing you back in the ring. But let's look back in time a little bit then and go over some key fights, because obviously you've had a lot of them, and you've had more, and we can talk about all of them today. But let's talk about a few key ones, all right, before we get into some other stuff. So I want to go all the way back now. What is it, 6 or 7 years ago now, to your very first title win. Okay, and I always mess the guy's name up, even though I've seen him fight live. Christopher Severe. Yeah, Severe.
He's
Yeah,
French. Yeah.
yeah, he's French, yeah, and I've seen you fight. He's a great fighter. I always butcher the guy's name. So, Christopher, if you're watching this, I'm sorry. Anyway, but yeah, let's talk about that. That was your first title that you won. And I'm just going to run through a few key fights. What are your memories of that now? Because you've come a long, long way since then. Obviously, winning, British and Commonwealth, and challenging for these different things. But when you look back on it now, what do you remember about that fight?
I just remember that 1 minute I was boxing in the local shows in Oceana, Swansea, in Neath, in the Court Herbert. Next thing you know, I'm boxing in Cardiff on a big massive show in the undercard of some top quality fighters. And, my first 10 rounder. And it was an experience that will live with me for the rest of my life. He wasn't your average fighter. Yes, he had a few losses, but he was switched in for the full fight. I just kept it basic, and I think I won by a big margin, but he was a very good fighter.
Fantastic. Okay, cool. Because in a minute now we'll get to the future, but I'm just going to look back at some of the past because you've accomplished a lot, obviously. Now another one here, obviously 2 fights with Tyrone Nurse, obviously absolute boxing legend, and I know we had obviously they were tough fights, they were tough fights, but they were brilliant fights to watch. Very very exciting at the time, I remember, and even to watch back now. Now and obviously back to back as well. So fighting him again, the same thing. I know it's not a really sort of narrow question about it, but just your own recollections of what he was like to fight, fighting a legend like that.
When we boxed, Tyrone had been around a lot longer than myself. He'd be sparring with professionals from a very young age. And he had a style that no one else had in Britain. So you couldn't get sparring partners to reenact the type of sparring for the fight. And, they were really tough fights between head clashes going in, getting cut, and looking back, my style suited him, a come forward fighter. And yes, I thought I did win one and he won the other, but it was, and yet again, another crazy event up in Manchester, like a boxing undercard of Anthony Corolla. And, I took some fans up there, and like I said, I just fell short, but, it was nice to have, and it's good for my children to look back on, seeing daddy getting punched in the face and getting cut. But, they can see where it's a little lesson to them in life, never give up.
Yeah, it is for sure. Talking about never give up, champ, it's funny you should mention that because there's been times in your career. I mean, this is part of the thing. You've done a bit of everything. I mean, you've had obviously a lot of wins, a lot of great wins. You've had draws, you've had tough losses. Obviously, a few of the old head clashes as well,
Yeah.
and all this stuff. But you've kept going even in times when you've had difficult patches in your career. I mean, obviously, if we look at around the time of Akeem Ennis-Brown and then Darren Foley, those fights, obviously, both of them having big trouble with the head clashes, and we can talk about the individual fights in a minute. But I want to look at it from a different point of view. In times like that, what's inspired you to keep going? Because a lot of people will give up with something like that. I mean, do you know what I mean? Because you had a real tough spell. So for you personally, where did you find the strength to keep pushing? Because bearing in mind, for anyone that doesn't know watching this now, this was before, obviously, British and before Commonwealth titles, and you kept going to get the titles. So if we go back to, say, around that time, say around Akeem Ennis and Darren Foley, both of the fights stopped with head clashes. Obviously, one of them being a draw, one of them being a loss, but both of them stopped early with head clashes. What inspired you to keep going at that time when you think back to it now?
Oh, well, I lost against Darren Foley. No, who did I lose to first? I lost to Akeem first. And I don't know, I just thought, you know what, I've taken the fight on X amount of weeks' notice. I've dropped the shitloads of weight. I was in the Who Needs Me club at the time because from 2015 till I don't know when, till I had the shot of the British, really. There was no promoter behind me. I recently signed with Mo Pryor, and I'm still with him now. I moved gyms as well from my old gym to Guy Rockets between that time. And I just think I just kept pushing, really, just keep digging in and knowing, I am good enough to be in boxing.
Yeah. It makes sense. It makes sense. I mean, it's an interesting one because I highlight this. The reason I highlight this, champ, is because it's inspiring for fighters coming through as well? Because you know, obviously, you're saying just now it's inspiring for your children and for your family. Well, it's inspiring, I think, for people in the community as well and young boxers because they think, you know what, if you do have some of these tough breaks, sometimes you keep pushing, you can get there. You know, whereas a lot of people will have quit. And I think it's testament to your championship mindset and everything, and obviously testament to Guy Rocket and everyone else as well, and everything like that. So talking about some other fights here before we get to obviously future plans and things of that nature, because you know we've talked about a couple of the tough ones. One of your best wins, obviously, Johnny Garton, and I remember personally, I remember that time. You know, the build up to the fight was electric in Wales. I mean, it was such a great opportunity for you, and obviously winning the British title in that fight. You know, over 12 rounds. Now, I want to talk a little bit about that. How did it feel? And I know people always talk about the fights themselves, so we can talk about that. But after everything you've been through, with some of the the obstacles and obviously a few fights not going your way, to finally get there and win it, what goes through your mind in a moment like that? You know, when you have your hand raised and well, you probably knew you won before. I mean, in the fight, but still, if you think about it, I mean, what goes through your mind in a moment like that, champ? How does it feel? Is it something you can put into words, or let's see?
You I can't honestly put in the words. I think before the fight was announced, my best mate took his own life. Busy day for my birthday, for a year, 2 years before. So I was struggling to cope with that at the time. And when I did lose against, I think it was Dara Foley, I was actually on the phone with my wife saying I'm finishing boxing. And speaking to Gary saying I'm done in this game. I don't want to do it no more. But I had the support of my wife, support of certain people where I live, and especially Guy Loggett. Gary said, "Look, hold in there now." This was about 6 months before I actually boxed the title. He said, "We'll get there, we'll get there." And when I boxed that night, I did have no pressure on my shoulders at all. I was going in there, and I was confident I was going to win. But if I didn't win, it weren't the end of the world. I was just somebody they brought in to fight, but everything clicked. With a wicked camp with Gary, working with Brett Parry as well, my strength conditioner Joe Thompson. Everything clicked that night, and it showed. When I had the words and the new, I just broke down in tears, crying. An interview in the dressing room afterwards, me trying to be my usual self, an upbeat character, and as soon as I see my wife, I just broke down crying because it's not just me that goes through the struggles at times. It's my wife that's with me all the time. Say I'm coming home and I've lost and I'm crying, upset. She's got to be there to support me emotionally, and it made it all worthwhile. Especially with losing a friend of mine, a very good friend of mine, and then it was like a fairy tale ending, but we don't want it ending now. We just want to win this belt outright.
100%, 100%. Before we get into more fights, though, champ, I want to highlight something else here because you mentioned that your wife and your family and everything, and obviously they're on the highs and lows with you. I mean, that's a very important factor. With your children, I mean, do you let them watch your fights, or those that are old enough or things like that, or how does it sort of impact on them when you're going away to fight, if you get what I mean? And again, it's not really a narrow question as such, but like in the household, because again, people don't think of it with fighters. People see the guy in the ring, right?
Mm.
The fans now, and they think, oh, it's him and everything, but there's all people behind, obviously yourself and fighters in general, mothers and fathers and brothers and sisters and children, and obviously the partners and all this sort of stuff. So not to mention obviously the teammates and all that, but focusing in on the family. I mean, when let's switch it on its head and focus on a positive thing. When you came home with the belt that time, how did your children react with that? What was the reaction from them?
Um, my boys were they're only young, so it's really not a big thing. They're like wow and stuff like that, but they're too young to understand. They know what daddy does. you know, like when I fight and I try to win belts and I try to make life a little easier for us. But no, they're happy. They're well-behaved children. They get brought up the right way to respect people. You know, I got a good wife for me who's bringing them up well, and they know what I do, and it's like I said earlier on, it's showing them never give up in life. You know, when you get knocked down, get back up and give another go and stuff. But to be honest with you, they're more interested in their iPads, Nintendo Switches, and YouTube. So
Yeah, that's how it is now, isn't it? With the young ones coming up, they're into it fully. You know, I mean, I remember when I was coming up, it wasn't like that. It was just, I mean, we had PlayStations and we had some of the basic stuff, but it wasn't really like it is now. Whereas now they're just into it from, yeah. But it's good to highlight that, how the belts and what they think, because I know obviously you're a very family orientated individual, and I don't always mention that, champ, in interviews. So we don't mind that, but it's a good little highlight of the impact there. Moving on then, because we were talking about Johnny Garden. Let's talk about obviously Paddy Gallagher, and this is a great one. This is a great one to talk about now. Great win, because obviously, as well as the British title being on the line, obviously you've got the Commonwealth welterweight title this time as well. I went over to Belfast, and all this sort of thing. And again, I mean, I know I said this before, but the atmosphere in Wales was electric. Now I know the fight was stopped obviously in the ninth round with head clashes again, but obviously winning the Commonwealth as well. Again, it's a similar question to before, but how did that feel? Because now you had two belts, two of the most prestigious belts in boxing, I might add. And obviously, you'd worked very hard for it because you've obviously previously challenged for different belts as well, including previously challenging for the British and all these things. But you got there. I mean, you got there, and obviously you went into his backyard basically. I mean, you went into Ireland. So first of all, let's talk about the build up to the fight. Going over to Ireland, I mean, did that affect you at all, like with the crowd and with anything like that, or does it just not make any difference to you, going into his back garden to fight him?
no, not really. Myself, I've been in the game for so long. I box all over the world as an amateur. Obviously, with the professionals, it's a slightly bit different, but no, not really. If anything, I was more shocked that we were boxing outside in front, I think it was 20,000 people. It's a massive event over in Ireland. And the funny story is, I text Gary, something like, "Oh, Gar, I'm boxing outside." And he goes, "Well, yeah, it's a massive event over there." Then it kind of like, woof. But, it was something that I can look back on and say that I've gone out there and I've beat an Irish fighter in Ireland. And not many fighters go out there and win on points. I thought I was winning the fight. I gave him possibly 2 rounds at best. Yes, he dropped me with a nice little body shot, so probably 3. But I knew for a fact I was winning that fight. And afterwards, when he started saying this, saying other people saying this, I rewatched the fight, and you can see where the head clash goes in. And I scored the rounds, and I won that fight fair and square.
100%, 100%. I agree. I mean, obviously going into the fight, I do remember thinking, obviously going into his back garden, and obviously there's always this worry with the judges and how it's going to go and all this sort of thing. Although I wasn't sure if it was going to go to the judges, but yeah, I mean, you 100% won it when you actually watched the fight. I agree, hands down, obviously. But yeah, it was fantastic to watch, very exciting. Same thing as before, though. I've got to mention, winning the Commonwealth as well as the British. And I know I asked this earlier about winning the British, but again, what goes through your mind in a moment like that? Because as you say, it's a historic moment, obviously for Welsh boxing, obviously, personally for yourself and your family, obviously being on a massive show and all this sort of stuff. So in that moment, you might not be able to put it in words again, champ. So sorry if I'm saying that. But what does go through your mind in a moment like that when when you knew that you'd won, and you realised that you were now the Commonwealth champion as well as the British?
I just said, "Where's my belt?" Seriously, I was like, "Where's my belt? Where is it?" Well, because it was hard to process it in my brain that I've not only got one belt now, but I've got 2 belts.
Mm.
And it's credit to myself, but a massive credit to my team, especially Gary Lockett. You know, I nearly walked away from the sport a year before, and then I'm sat in Belfast in the hotel at night, having a few bronies with the team, Den, Al, me, Gary, and there's a few of us here. Probably missed somebody out, I do apologise. We're having a few bronies, and I'm sat there with 2 belts, you know, and it was like, am I dreaming? But I weren't. And I came home. Obviously, my little one at the time, he's seen the Commonwealth belt, and it was like, me. So now that is his belt. No one's having that belt. It's his for the rest of his life. He wasn't interested in the British. He wants the Commonwealth of it.
Oh, bless him. It's a fantastic story, though, Chan. It's incredible. And it's just an incredible achievement, you know. And it's weird because I remember it like it was yesterday, you know, with really winning. And it was just, I don't know, it's hard to explain, but obviously, as a Welsh person myself, and obviously as a boxing fan, and obviously, it was just an incredible feeling. And I really think that, you know, all of Wales felt that way because, you know, we were all behind you. But amazing. And obviously, your last fight to date, just to give us a quick mention before we get, you know, back to the present day.
Yeah,
Obviously, Liam Taylor, technical decision draw, and obviously head clashes again.
yeah.
You know, but and obviously that was a British and Commonwealth defense. Now, what are your reflections on that fight? Was it disappointing considering, you know, what happened? I mean, I still think that what did happen in the fight was great to watch, by the way. But still, with that being said, what are your reflections on that now, with that being your last fight to date, with Liam Taylor?
Um, I got respect for Liam Taylor. I knew he was a good fighter. He'd have beaten Tyrone Nurse, who I'd lost to. So I know he's a very good fighter. Same again, camp didn't go well, if I'm honest with you. I broke my nose in sparring. Literally 3 weeks before. Then I think it was a week before I had a tough out in the back. So everything that could have gone wrong for that camp went wrong. But being a professional, I was going to take that fight. I started really slow. And it showed in there that I was doing things during the fight that if I'd have had the sparring, obviously my nose was gone. I had a tough, so I could not spar. Everything else got done good, but you know, you hit me in the back of the head, you ended up putting me down. I got up, my head went, and it went back to my old style. Went back to the corner, and Gary just said, "Look, we'll come into it." I thought I came in the third round nice, and I was getting a better in the fourth, and from nowhere, the head just went slammed straight into my eye, and you know, we've looked back on it. You know, people can have an opinion on it. We've got our own opinion on it. But it was gutted. But at the end of the day, I was traveling back home with my 2 belts to see my family. I was healthy. You know, he was healthy, but we both went home healthy. Yeah, he might have had taste of sour grapes in his mouth, like I had a taste of sour grapes as well. But it is what it is. It's about time I had the rub of the green because I haven't really had much to rub the green beforehand. So it's really nice to get the rub of the green, as they say.
100%, yeah, it's good stuff. All right then, champ. Bringing that back to the not you know the present day or you know whatever with some more general questions, not about specific fights. You mentioned your professional mentality. Now I want to just hone in on this a little bit because you really do have that warrior mentality. And I'm not being funny just saying that, but obviously you fight the best, and you always step in there regardless of what's happening. Like we were saying with the nose and the tooth and all this stuff. And I know that's what professionals do, and I know you know you've got that amateur pedigree as well and all this type of stuff. But I still want to focus on the mental side of boxing before we get to the physical training. Because, you know, it's good again for young fighters watching this. On a run up to a fight, what is your sort of mentality to it? Because you know you're taking some of these fights against really tough opposition, you know, and you're under pressure yourself in some situations. I mean, you know, you obviously like you're saying, you know, you couldn't spar, you had to know, and that's just one example. I'm sure there's been lots of things like that in your career because again, you know, fans think, oh, it all goes perfect and all this, and oftentimes when you're in the, you know, in the gym, it doesn't go perfect, and all types of stuff happens. So I want to highlight that a bit about what goes through your mind on the run up to a fight and how you mentally prepare for fights as well as how you physically prepare, if you get what I mean, because
Yeah,
people often it's a mental game as well as a physical game. So when you're on a run up to a fight, what how do you mentally prepare basically? I mean, that's the question.
that's a crazy thing that I can't understand. I can't explain it. I think it's because I've been boxing since the age of 12, and I'm now 32, and you could say it's second nature to me. Now, the mental side of it, when you're tired, you've got to tell yourself you've got to keep going. And most importantly, when you are feeling them dull days, you got to listen to your body. So I have the rest day, you might say, like an evening off and things, but I don't really know. I just think that I'm so focused on what needs to be done. I don't really think too much of it. I got a routine up in my head, a structure in my head. Well, I've got to be at what time, and that's what I thought. I thought it's like military. It is. Everything's got to be there on time, and then I try never to be late for whether it's the gym or whether it's with my strength and conditioner, alpha conditioning, Joel. I'm always on time and I'm always early. So I don't know, mate. I can't really explain the mental side of it. People
Mm.
say I am mental, like no, because I'm a bit nuts, but I don't know.
Yeah. No, it makes sense. I mean, it's still a good insight into it, though. I mean, I get where you're coming from because, a few people have told me that type of similar type of thing, the top fighters and things like that. But again, like I keep saying, it's a good highlight of it because it's what people don't see, and in part of this, I'm just as much about getting out of these interviews what people don't see as what they do see. So another part of it is obviously I gotta give a shout out to Gary Lockett, the legend that he is, and obviously his gym, and you're training with him because obviously there's some fantastic talent at that gym. I mean, there's so many, talented lads in there. I want to interview Gary. He said to me, he said something really interesting. He said success breeds success. In other words, you're all in the gym together, you're all talent. There's a lot of titles and things that, in the gym. So I want to talk a little bit about your training and what it's like training with Gary because he's always struck me as being like a sort of like a mentor as well as a trainer in the sense that he seems to tell people. I mean, just from when I've been in the gym myself, he seems to tell people things about life and about the business of boxing, as well as
Yeah,
just the training and various things. But in your own words, champ, I mean, what's it like training there? Day to day, in the gym. Just anything you'd like to say about that, really. I know it's not like a narrow question, but anything you'd like to say about Gary in the gym, please, champ.
this is with me, it was the best move I could have done at the time. Gary's been in the game. He's got the t-shirt, and you know, we just got some lads there. Myself, Jay Harris, who's like the seasoned pros, as you may say. We've
Mm.
got Reese Edwards there now. You've got you got Nathan Foley. At the time I was there, Alex Hughes was there. Liam Williams was there at the time when I was there. Nick Blackwell was down with us. But you've got a young group coming through now, like Callum, Ben Crocker, and Kieran, who's just turning over. And you got myself there, Reese. So it's just a good bunch of lads, and you know, Gary's just a top bloke in boxing and out of boxing. When I was having troubles getting over my friend's death, he was there on the phone straight away. So he's very caring, and there's no many people out there like Gary in this game who think of the fighter before thinking about you could say, the financial benefits.
Yeah, very true. Very, very true. And that's why I wanted to highlight that, champ, is you see, I mean, I've seen it anyway, just from knowing Gary, just the way he is with, with his fighters and also the way he is in general, but I just wanted to give that a quick mention.
Mm.
Just 'cause he's a great guy anyway, and I wanted to give that a mention. So I've only got like two or three more things now, okay, because this has gone a little bit longer than what I thought, but it's going really good. So another one is looking back on your career. I mean, you've had a career of a lot of tough fights, basically. I know that goes without saying, but is there one that stands out for you personally being the toughest? Where you really had to, maybe there's more than one, but where you really had to dig deep. Is there one or two that come to mind for that?
Probably very early on in my career, I boxed a journeyman, and being in a 4-round fight, I think it might have only been my second or third fight. I don't know, maybe fourth fight, but I went out there all guns blazing, thinking, yeah, get him out now. And in the third round, he hit me and like with a body shot, and it just took everything out of me. And I was like, whoa, that's a big insight to professional boxing. And it learned me not to cut corners and things like that. So, but every fight I've been in for the last three fights have been tough, haven't they? They've all been British titles, combat titles, and even before when I was taking last minute fights and stuff, you know. But no, I'm just looking forward to the next fight, really.
Yeah, yeah, and again, that really shows your mentality, your professional warrior mentality. But I like to talk about that with toughest fights, just because it's often not what you'd expect. When I ask this to fighters, they'll often say that. They'll often say, "Oh, like it's a journeyman or it's somebody you've never heard of," unless you really follow boxing really closely. And it's surprising, but although it's not surprising because some of those guys are talented, but it's often not what you expect. Brilliant. Okay, so it's only a couple more things. The other one is I know you boxed all over the world as an amateur, and you boxed around the UK and Ireland as a professional and things like that. But is there a particular venue in terms of crowd support? And when you walk in some venues and the energy is just electric, just on fire, and then in other venues it's more sort of subdued, or it depends on where you go. Is there one that you remember as having like the best crowd atmosphere, like the best? It's probably at home in Wales, but maybe not. Maybe it's somewhere else. Is there anyone that comes to mind for that?
Obviously, when I box at home, it's nice to see the faces and hear the chants. But the craziest place I probably boxed was against Akeem Ennis Brown.
Hmm.
I can't remember where I boxed him now. Gloucester, I think it was. I'm not sure. But
Gloucester, I think,
his
yeah.
crowd were bonkers. And I mean, they were nuts. They were screaming, shouting, not saying nice things about me. But, I was thinking, wow, I wish I had a crowd like this. But everywhere I box, it's a ring at the end of the day. It doesn't affect me whilst I'm in there throwing the punches because you zone out and focus on the job at hand. But walking to the ring when I was boxing the Key Ennis Brown, and when he came in, seeing that crowd, they're bloody nuts.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. That is true. I mean, I wasn't at that fight personally, but I did an interview with his trainer. Well, I've done an interview with Ricky, but with his trainer as well, John Pittman. And when he described the atmosphere himself, he actually said to me that he when he was coming out with Akeem, he really had to compose himself as a coach because. And he won't mind me saying that because it's in the interview, but because the crowd was so wild basically, and there was like such an atmosphere in there. And when he said that to me, I thought that must be something, for him to feel like that as being a seasoned coach that he is. It's that's pretty crazy. All right, the last couple of things then. Proudest moment. All right. Now I'm guessing that in your career, your proudest moment has probably been winning the British and the Commonwealth and all that. But I never assume that because it might be something else, like the toughest fight. You could guess, but you're the one who knows. So in your
Yeah.
career, what is the proudest moment? What are you most proud of so far? I know there's more to come, by the way, there's a lot more to come. But looking back, what's the one where you look back and you think, oh, that was it, that was the one.
You've got to look at the British being the main bee's knees, but the prize fight that when I went out in 2013, I broke on the scene. That was something that's going to live with me forever. But it's most definitely the British. It's all the ups and downs between 2015 to where I won in 2019. The struggle going through taking last minute fights. Losing my best friend, struggling with his death, like trying to let it sink in. Where trouble's there, but we got through it, and it just shows the hard work, the right support around you, the the, the people around you, your family around you. You can achieve anything.
Absolutely, absolutely. Fantastic message. I mean, it's incredible. And the last thing really is just obviously the future because I know we've touched on that on and off through the interview. So you can't wait for the next one, and you're itching to get back in there. Obviously, I can say myself personally, and I think on behalf of Welsh boxing fans, we're all super excited to see you back in the ring. But what are your future plans from here? What are you sort of aiming for next, and what's on the horizon for the rock and roller?
Well, at the moment, I'm currently recovering from a perfected eardrum.
Yeah.
That obviously I said just now was. I've got a checkup now a week on Friday. That's about 9 to 10 days time, and hopefully it's fully healed, and I'll have a date towards end of June would be ideal for me. I am taking over in the gym. I'm up in Cardiff 3 days a week and get my road work in, but to be fight ready, good 4, 5 weeks. I'll be ready to go. And I've got a mandatory challenger in Echo Esserman. He's 14-0 undefeated. Good fighter, but me and him don't see eye to eye, so that's going to make it even better fight.
Fantastic. And the very last thing, champ, I mean, this is not a question, but just, is there anything you'd like to say to people watching this, be it your fans, be it your teammates in the gym, sponsors, anybody really, that supported you? Do you have any words for them, anything you'd like to say to them at all?
First off, big shout out to my manager, Mark Pryor. When I was in the Who Needs Me club, he signed me up. Massive shout out to Gary. He's not just my coach, a good friend of mine as well. Obviously Brett, El Bretto, part of the team. You got Joel Thompson, my strength and conditioner, to come on board. I just basically, you to all the boys in the gym. I know I'm a bit nuts sometimes, but hey, that's me. But no, sponsor wise, I've got a big list of sponsors, and I would mention every single one of them, but I think I'll be here till tomorrow afternoon. But they know who they are, and without the help of them guys, I would be probably retired by now, working full time. But if there's anyone out there that would like to help me out sponsorship wise, happily drop me a message. Hopefully we can sort something out. Like,
Fantastic. Well, champ, I mean, it's been a pleasure. It's been an honor, by the way. Obviously, it's been great to catch up because I know it's been ages since I think it was MTK show or something last time we actually saw each other. But it's been,
when Jay Harris boxed, was it for the European title?
I think it might have been. Yeah, I think it might have been. It was either that one. I was trying to remember it myself actually because I think Liam Williams was there as well, but I'm not sure because I might be mixing two of them up. Yeah, it might have been when Jay Harris boxed. If so, it's been a while. But anyway, I think it probably was, to be honest. It was a great night, that was mine. But yeah, because I know I've seen you at a few shows, haven't you, with your wife, a few different shows. But anyway, it's been great to catch up, and it's been a pleasure. It's been an honor, and it's been, honestly, and I'm not just saying this now, it's been better than what I was expecting. Because it's honestly, I'm not just saying, it's really flown, and I was a bit thing about it because I was preparing these questions yesterday and I didn't have much time. I did it all on the fly and everything like that. So it's actually worked out really, really well. So honestly, champ, thank you for your time, and it's been fantastic. Really appreciate you squeezing me in because I know you're flat out with training and with the kids and with everything else. So thank you, brother. Really appreciate it.
No worries. Thank you as well. It's nice to be asked for these little interviews so I don't get forgotten. So I appreciate it, and thank you for your time as well.
Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe to the Simply Inspired YouTube channel, and there'll be more videos coming soon.